The way I look at my topic, I've been a veterinarian for 44 years. So along the way, I started seeing some animals that I did everything that I had been taught in school, surgically, medically, and I would find myself in front of a cage of an animal that looked pretty desperate, and pretty hard not to get emotional. So what happens is that you start wondering when you're standing in front of that animal, you know how much change you can make in that pet, what you choose to do. So, I didn't know at one point if I was praying, if I was just indecisive, but the more I studied myself, the more I realized there was as I started reading and taking some courses, that I was actually transferring energy with that pet. And so early on, I started seeing examples of how one's mind could make so much a difference in your own body and others. One was I went to a conference in Columbus, and they had 300 people in the room, and they gave us this little thermometer, and it was on biofeedback. And they asked us to close our eyes and think about walking on hot coals. And after they had us visualize this heat, they had us read off the temperature that was on the thermometer and put our hands up depending on what the temperature was. Mine went up to 103.5. Mine was the highest in the entire room. And I went up and talked to this gentleman. He was actually a minister in Columbus. He was talking on his passion about biofeedback. So that was a graphic example. And then 16 years ago is actually when I took a course that my mother-in-law, she saw my interest, and she was always doing things with chiropractors and with acupuncture, with even a skunk that they had, okay? And so she talked me into going to see Carol Comator, who was from Colorado, and she taught a course in healing touch. And she was a nurse and also a veterinary technician. And I went to that course, and one example, I love everything by example. So the first morning we didn't take our pet, second day we took our pet, third day we went to do horses. So the first break, and I've taken all the courses now twice, okay? And I've taken some of the courses in the human side. So one of the things we had is we went around, we chose a person in the audience, or other individuals that were taking the course, went up to them, and we were told to just, without any training, just like 2 hours worth of discussion on energy. And it's actually an electromagnetic field is what we're feeling, okay? To go up to the person, and we took turns on each other, and to go until you felt their energy. Well, you really had never felt it before, so, like, you could always, eventually you feel something, okay? And then they would teach us to rub our hands together and do it again. And then you go up to the person. And what's interesting, early on, you could actually feel the difference of one side to the other. Like if I go up to you, may I?
Yeah.
And if I go up to one side, if I go up to the other side, I don't have to rub my hands together anymore. It comes a little bit more naturally. But there'll be a void. There'll be an imbalance, and everyone just about has something that's either gone through in the past, yesterday, this morning, something. And when I did it to this individual, and then we took our break for lunch, the lady in the front that was giving the course, she said, come up here just a second, have you ever done that before? And I said no. But it was someone they knew their entire medical background on. And she said that when I went to their head, their knee, or whatever, I mapped out what that individual had. In other words, when I went up to this area and I felt a good strong energy, it was where it was supposed to be. When I would go up to like her right shoulder, I have to go up this far before I can feel it. And so that just means there's something I have to work on in that area. So after you start feeling this, it's just like you cannot stop your passion, because you always want to do it and you always want to help somebody. And it just goes on and on and on. So I've taken courses over the years, And there's all kind of spin-offs of this, even with the medicine that I use. Some people call it like muscle, like nutritional testing with muscle testing. I do it with actually a pendulum. I can do it with my hand, but it's quicker. And it can be any weight, anything to keep your hand steady. And I have found that I've been able to go up to a medicine and everything has a resonance, okay? That's what you have to believe. I'll back up a little bit. So everything has a vibrational energy. And the sense is all the way down to a molecule, okay? So when you're trying to decide either like a medicine, which like an essential oil, a true medicine like phenobarbital for a seizure, and then every person, every cell of that person has an energy. It only makes sense that the reason some of these things work or don't work or have side effects is because that resonance is clashing. It's not adding, it's not contributing to any healthy thing. It's actually working against you. So every week, I take my Juice Plus every day. And every week, though, when I put it in a little container, so I keep track of if you took it that morning or not, try it as a little constant reminder, I actually rebalance every week how many of those capsules, I don't take the chewables, I take the capsules, how many I take of each one each week is based upon my testing with my pendulum. Doesn't take but 2 or 3 minutes. I've had patients before that come in status epilepticus in a seizure that they will not go out of. They've been in it for like a half an hour. They call and say, oh my gosh, what do I do? They bring it in. I tell them the medication to get is 12 pounds. You know, get the Valium out, to get the phenobarbital out. Maybe you have to put them on Sevoflow, a general anesthetic, propofol IV. So I tell them to get a couple drugs out. By the time they get it out of all the boxes you have to unlock in the refrigerator and all the things, it takes 2 or 3 minutes because you can't leave it out. And I love it because that gives me time in a dark room to evaluate their chakras. And most commonly I deal with their brow chakra, and I work with their, probably the crown chakra, the second most. And I feel that imbalance on them. These are animals that have had this problem for, already now 45 minutes by the time they get to my clinic. It's not uncommon, especially in the last 5 years, that before they can get the medicine drawn up, that animal is out of that seizure. Now you do that a couple, 3 times and you're a believer that there's something to it. It's beyond just coincidence. And then my goal is to balance that individual's health in many ways so that we don't have to ideally be on the medication that we generally would use, because all of them pretty much have side effects. And I reduce them off the traditional phenobarbital, the potassium bromide, there's a half a dozen things we use for seizures, and put them on. A lot of the things that I use are from a standard process company that it's an organic farm, and it's all about like neuroendocrine balancing. So it's balancing things that they are deplete in, that they need more of. It blows my mind why people are not receptive to things. I have an example of a lady that works for me. Her husband had thyroid surgery from a cancer. He had numbness in his arm. And he went to his endocrinologist and said, how does that like work? I didn't have it before I had the thyroid problem. I didn't have it before I had the surgery. He says, well, it might come back. It had been there for like a year and a half. And I evaluated him because I know him. And there's a product that's like $9. It's called Trace Minerals that I added to his program. Within 2 weeks, he had tingling in his arm. He has like 95% feeling in his arm. He went back to the endocrinologist, and guess what they said? Well, that was just coincidental. It's hard for the traditionally trained, like I was, community to actually open up their minds to thinking of things because they're so structured into things. We still need that. And like I go to the Ronald McDonald House, and I've been welcomed there. I go to their wellness room, and I have an interpreter, and I make appointments with kids. And I'm not certified for people, so I'm allowed to like make them feel more relaxed and to teach them how to feel energy and all that. And when I do that, I show them how to feel energy between their hands. I teach them where their chakras are. I teach them how to be able to take their heart chakra and move it to where they have the problem. I take essential oils. I match up with that child what essential oil resonates with them. I tell them how they can get it. They don't get it from me. I don't charge anything. It's so nice to be able to step out of my realm of something that's profit motivated. And, you know, I mean, as far as you have to make a living, it's sort of nice to step into a realm where there's not, that is totally gone. You're doing it because you like to do it, and you're looking for nice results, and there's no hidden motive. There's just absolute purity to it. It makes you feel so good. And what happens then, that makes me healthier. The healthier I get, the healthier I can make the patients and those around me. I took a course in the 9 Rites of Mune Key at the Harmony Farms in Tip City, and it was on shamanism. You ever been there?
She's from Tip City.
Tip City? Is that where it is? Tip City or
I don't know.
anyway, it's in that area. It's north of me. But anyway, it's Harmony Farms, and it's on like the medicine men of Peru, and a culture that has to do with totally different than the way we look at our own lifestyle. They actually took care of each other, okay? They actually cared for their elderly, and they had a structure, and everybody had more of a purpose, and they worked together for harvest, and everybody had a nice little structure. It was sort of some things I think we've lost. But they taught me about the luminescent body. You actually, I can close my eyes and go up to an individual. I won't keep picking on you. But I'll go up to an individual, and I actually fractionate that body into a white particles that are like floating, and I visualize that person as individual little, gets it down to me as far as I am concerned, the cells, okay? So I see your body as light, as resonating. And I'll put a person in front of me, or myself, I've done it both ways, that's not even there. I mean, I've talked to them, I know they have some health concerns, and I visualize them, and I actually, the chakras that she was talking about, I actually check their chakras out when they're not present in the room, and then speak to them, and then actually work on them. And I've actually had people, that I had permission for this, that I've worked on telepathically, and then I've talked to them later on, they said, I thought you were working on me, I felt that, you know? And you didn't tell you about my knee, but my knee was hurting, it feels better today. So again, you do that a couple times, and it makes you, once you start believing in yourself, you're just empowered with this energy that's just like you can do anything. It feels so good.